each and every session that we do, we record to the cloud. So if for some reason you miss part of this, you can catch it on Friday. You'll get an email with access to the YouTube channel that has the recordings of this session, all our preceding sessions from Ignite After Dark, and the additional 2 sessions we'll have this week as well. You've got another option, though. If for some reason you've got to go and you want to come back for round 2 or to catch what you might have missed in this session, I will be hosting the West Coast session this evening. So it's 5 p.m., 5:07 p.m. in Texas right now. From 8 to 10, we're going to do this all over again. All right. We're talking making and receiving offers this evening, and then we're going to talk about negotiating those offers as well. Really cool, very practical session. And so, I said from the top that this is an interactive experience. I'd love to hear your stories, your questions, the practical pieces. Negotiations is one of those things that is so. I think the best practices here carry across industry boundaries. Much like we could look at a lead generation funnel, from cultivating opportunities to setting appointments with people to actively working with them to working an active agreement to pending contract to closing. You could take that to a burger chain. You can take it to an IT consultant. You can take it to a window cleaning business, and that same lead or the same economic model works. The cool thing about negotiations, we get to borrow a lot of concepts from other industries as well. So I'm curious, as we get started, who's got some experience with negotiations? Who's got a favorite book that they've read, a favorite concept, a principle, something here that you just love thinking about negotiations in a certain way? Okay, it's all good. If you think of something, feel free to share it. Mike, I see you with your mic on. You got something to share?
Not right now.
Okay, gotcha. Uh, I love it. Never Split the Difference. Freeman mentions in the chat. Really good book. The subtitle to that book is Negotiate Like Your Life Depends on It. This is a book written by an FBI hostage negotiator. Some of y'all would reference a book called Getting to Yes. There's a really good book I'm going to recommend called The Full Fee Agent. I think it's just so cool. Now, there's some elements in there. We know that all agent compensation is negotiable. And so there are some elements in the book that maybe are of an older mindset, that there are some kind of fee specifically that would seek. But I think most of the concepts in the book are really pretty awesome because it talks about coming from contribution, to listening, walking into a listing appointment, thinking, man, this is my listing. Should I choose to take it? And when we go to work deals, if there is a win-win solution to be found, we are the ones that are going to find it. Maria, coming to you.
I Hi, thanks. I think really the biggest thing is just communication with the other agent. Don't just keep it friendly, keep it warm and work together because you're both trying to get to the end goal.
That's so good. That's so good. And negotiations, most of this we're going to talk about in the second half of this evening. But I love this concept. We're looking for a win-win for sure. Like, there is no win in negotiations if both parties don't accept it. It's just the nature of it. You absolutely must have acceptance on both sides. And I just want to lay this out as we talk about writing offers, as we talk about receiving and reviewing offers that others have written, as we talk about negotiating for the best terms. I just want you to keep in mind that we are hired as agents. Some of you are brokers, but we are hired as real estate professionals for our clients to bring about a closing, not necessarily to bring the very best terms. And so it's great. It's a bonus if we can bring the best terms available, if we can get the very best outcome, if we can negotiate a low price, or if we can get extra incentives included. And if we don't get it to closing, none of that matters. And so just keep this in mind. We are working toward an end goal. Our clients hire us so that we can bring it to a completion. People move when they have a reason to move. Investors purchase because they want to grow their wealth. And so if we are not serving that specifically, getting them to a place where they can move because they have a reason to, getting our investors into a new purchase because they want to build their wealth, then we're missing the point entirely. Lisa says, we must understand what is truly important to the other side. So good. Yeah. Also, when they say yes, just stop. Getting More by Stuart Diamond. I've not read that, uh, but that's so good. Warren, I invite you to be part of the conversation when we circle around the Y4C2Ts, which we are going to be talking about this evening. And Derek, you say that it's a lot like doing police interrogations. I'm curious, are you a police officer?
Retired 24 years. And
God bless you, sir. Thanks for that work.
thank you. And I was talking with a sales friend, which it was kind of how I got into real estate because, long story short, is we're talking about interrogations. And he said, it's basically the same model that I do in sales, he said. And we talked more about it, and that really sparked a conversation. And he's like, you should get into sales. He goes, you're going to be, it's the same skill set. You're going to love it. It's
So,
about listening, building rapport, uh, getting under what the other person said about understanding what it is they're after, not what they say, but what they're actually after through body language and all this other stuff. So it's the same skills apply, like you were saying, that transfer over. It's really the same thing.
yeah, I mean, that's such a powerful concept. Coming from curiosity is a superpower in negotiations because if we walk into this thinking that we know best and we're super skilled and we're going to bring this to the best, we just are fooling ourselves and everybody else involved. If I come in instead and say, man, I'm equipped with really great questions and I'm going to bring about a great solution because I'm going to discover it, it's an entirely different thing. So, yeah, asking good questions, that is so powerful. Love it. Yeah, Never Split the Difference. Chris Voss is the author of that book. There is a follow up book called Full Fee Agent that he wrote for real estate specifically. It's an advanced concept. He's got a really cool concept called the negotiating nine, I believe. N9 is his model. And it's 9 different concepts you can walk in negotiations with. Highly recommend uh, looking into and equipping yourself with that. With that said, some of y'all are looking for the basics. So we're going to look at some of the fundamentals this evening as we go into this as well. So if you're new in real estate, if you're a rookie, first off, I'm going to recommend that you get this awesome book. If I can pick it up off my shelf, The Rookie Real Estate Agent. Y'all, I just love this. I've been teaching a bunch from this. I've been studying. We've got a Keller Williams University course that's coming out that many of you will have a chance to experience across the nation. Really neat concepts in here, and it lays out a lot of the fundamentals. So if you are a rookie agent and you're here hearing about working offers and negotiating for the first time in a real estate space, I'm going to be recommending that you go through and read that book, especially if you like the millionaire real estate agent. This is the millionaire real estate agent models and a lot of that same approach, but it's meant from a rookie standpoint. For instance, the budget model, instead of the MREA, which says 30% expenses, 30% cost of sales, and 40% profit, a rookie agent model would look like 20/20/60. And so just even that, to take something so fundamental and to have it be prescriptive that you can start building your business by, really good. John's reading it. Love it.
Same here. I don't like reading, but when I started reading that book, I'm really getting into it. So I recommend it as well.
So cool. Yeah, if it is going to help you build a bigger business and make more money, it's probably a good thing, right? So love it. That is the Rookie Real Estate Agent. Rookie Real Estate Agent. You can find um, here. Let me just type this in. You can find it at kellerinc.com, or you can find it on Amazon. I generally like purchasing. Caroline, I see yours. So good. And I went and found a yellow highlighter to pair with it. And y'all, I am marking that book up like crazy. I still got stuff to learn too. All right, let's jump in. As always, if you feel I skipped something, please do not let me escape it. Drop it in the chat. Would love to handle that. Also, I'm going to invite you to modify your Zoom name with the town that you're from, because something really cool happens when you share in this room. When you bring your voice into this space, there's a box that's going to turn green around your frame, the frame of your video, or even if you don't have your video on, and you're going to come up front in everybody's screen. They're going to see your name, And if you have it added like I do, they're also going to see where you're from as well. Great place to build referral relationships as we do business across the country. My name is Seth Mills. I am a producing agent, but that's not my main job. In fact, I own a real estate business with my wife. She gets to serve our clients in the field, and I have decided to step out. She's so much better than I ever was at listing homes. So I kind of got our business off the ground. She's taken that, and I spend my days coaching rookie agents into business and to help agents become more productive with their time and their energy. So I work with about 150 here in the Dallas area, and I do trainings like this because I'm passionate about it. Uh, so I am a productivity coach in the traditional sense. I'm not a current member, but I've been an international ALC member with KWI, a labs advisor for many years, and I'm a KWU approved instructor. If this session is impactful to you, I'm going to invite you to share an evaluation, a review of sorts later on. You look for a QR code. I am working to get my KWU certification, and I invite you to be a part of that process. If this delivery this evening is anything but a 5-star experience, I also invite you to use my phone number or my email and reach out to me directly. I'd love to know what I can do to make this a more valuable session. You can also scan the QR code there for more info. Okay, so we're deep in the transaction session. We're doing session 17 and 18 this evening, make and receive offers and negotiate them. Tomorrow, going to be talking about getting to the closing table and then also stepping forward and planning your future. I just want to remind you, so good, Derek, if you right click or if you hit the little 3 dots in the frame of your Zoom frame, you can see where it will say rename, and you can do it there. I just want to help you keep in mind that everything that you do while you're serving clients sets up the likelihood of receiving referrals in the future. And so if you wish to work with more intelligence and more ease, and I don't mean that you're going to put less effort into it, because I think that we fool ourselves when we think we're going to work smarter, not harder. I don't know agents that operate a business at a really high level that don't work really hard. They just work hard at the right things. So you can work smart and hard. It's not smarter, not harder. And so if we are working hard to serve our clients and we do it in such a way that they are delighted, they're going to want to tell other people about that experience, and they're going to refer to our business. They're also going to want to come back and do business with us again. In fact, there's a huge delta. Roughly 85% of buyers and sellers say they were super pleased and would work with their agent again. Anybody want to venture a guess of what percentage of buyers actually hire that same agent to sell their home? 13%, John's a pretty good guess, and it is right around there. Anywhere between, I would say like 12 to 20% is what I see on a regular basis. 15 is where it commonly lands. So really, you've either read the survey better than I did this year, or is a good guess. But there is just this huge delta. That means that roughly 70% of us, 3 out of 4 of us, do wrong by our past clients. It doesn't mean we do wrong by our clients. We work really hard to serve them at a high level. We're talking about how ways we can do that tonight. But I just want you to already be thinking about how are you going to stay in touch with them long term, such that when it's right for them to move again, they come and talk to you as opposed to anybody else. Because you better believe the closer they get to moving, there will be agents, just like you are seeking them today. There will be agents that will be seeking them in the future.
I mean, the camera got it. Okay.
And so you'll if you can build great follow-up systems, stay in touch with them, nurture them long term. So you just want to think about that while you're serving them. How are we already training them to stay in relation with us long term? How can we train them while they are a client to be a past client, such that they would come back and be a repeat client? So our Y4C2Ts, I'm going to pause on this for just a minute. I'd love to hear from 3 of you. What's your favorite of these Y4C2Ts? Y'all see them in action. I know you do, in the industry, in your office, the people that you know. Maybe it's some way that you worked it. Love it, Maria. Teamwork. Together, everyone achieves more.
I think for me, communication, the listening side of it.
So good. Oh man, we're talking about that. Yeah, how can I properly communicate to you what matters to you? if I don't first hear and understand what matters in the first place. Love it. I see a whole bunch: integrity, communication, creativity, the trust. I mean, we could pick out just about all of these. I love the idea of win-win, that it starts with this, that if we're going to be going in, and what's cool about this belief system, this is not just what we believe, but this is how we agree to treat each other with integrity, that we agree to approach our businesses with creativity, that, sometimes deals go sideways. Can we approach with curiosity and look for creative solutions that maybe nobody is thinking of before? So if this is new to you, I just encourage you, think about Y4C2Ts. Where can you see this coming into play in business? Like, how can you identify those that you admire? The top agents that are in your market area, the people that are your mentors that you're learning from. I bet if you study them, you'll see these characteristics show up in their walk. Here's our agenda for the night. We're going to talk about the offer process. We're going to talk about preparing the offer, writing the offer, presenting it, receiving and responding to it, and then we'll recap. You will have a chance to generate some leads tonight. I'm going to encourage you to come with curiosity, just like you would from anything, and engage at a high level when we get to that point. I'm not going to ask you to make any phone calls this evening, and you've decided to carve out a large portion of your Tuesday evening. I'd like you to have the ability to make some money as we're going through this together. All right, Bo Bennett. And if you, every time I see this quote, it makes me think of Bo Burnham. And I try to think of this in like,
never seen.
All right, let me get these. There we go. Anyhow, Bo Bennett, the author, he says, I like to think of sales as the ability to gracefully persuade, not manipulate, a person or persons into a win-win situation. And I think if we can approach it in this way, we understand sales, especially in real estate, is not convincing someone ever to purchase something that is not in their best interest. In fact, I don't know that we can really convince anybody to do something that they haven't already decided to do. In sales, we're more of a counselor than we are a convincer. In fact, if we understand that they have a purpose, that they're motivated, that's why we talk really early on about qualifying the buyers and sellers we work with. So we're not moving forward with people that aren't motivated to close. And if it's already in their best interest to move or to purchase or to sell, then our ability is to listen to what their motivation is, what they're seeking as the right outcome, and then we help them navigate those waters to that best outcome for them. Far be it for me to tell somebody this is a great house for you just because I want to sell this house, or you should write an offer today because I want a paycheck this month. That's just not how it works. And I've seen many like true sales professionals, people that have spent many years in retail or car sales or insurance sales. There's a lot of different backgrounds that people come into real estate. They're like, well, I've been a salesperson for a long time, so I'm going to be really good in real estate sales. And not all of those sales skills transfer, because there are many sales environments that would be about convincing and closing on the spot. I spent a long time, I spent 15 years in retail prior to becoming an appraiser, prior to becoming a real estate salesperson. My time in retail caused me to think, man, if somebody comes across and they're looking at something, if I'm really skilled at what I can do, I can convince them to move forward with something. Whether it is, hey, you've been a renter for a very long time, so let me convince you to purchase this now. Or you've been thinking about moving for a long time, so you should really sell your home. There's just not, as we attempt or would attempt to manipulate, it's just unlikely that we would ever get to closing. $500,000 is a pretty realistic price point in most of our market areas. It's just not realistic for most people to make a $500,000 choice because you and I think it's a good idea. They do it because they think it's a good idea, and we can just help them align. Yep, there are a lot of manipulative tactics. And be careful what books you read. And YouTube University has got all kinds of shortcuts. It's got the perfect words. I think of Phil M. Jones. He's got a book called Exactly What to Say. Great book. Really, really good book. And as we would think, man, I'm going to read that book so I can figure out exactly what to say to get people moving. actually what you find out is it's exactly what to say to get better results, but it's because it's curiosity. It's meeting people where they are. It's helping to lead them to a better decision, not to choose what we are offering. So let's talk about the offer process. In fact, there is a version of this chart in the Rookie Real Estate Agent book. And in there, it says the offer process can be really complicated and often circles back on itself. So we see it starts typically with the buyer making an offer. Now, I say typically because I'm going to tell you a story in a moment, something very recent for me. The buyer doesn't always make the offer. The seller then responds in one of three ways. They counter the offer, which goes back into negotiation. They accept the offer, which begins the contract period, or they reject the offer, which is an outright rejection. This is the only three ways that it's going to come about. Now, what colors these might carry can differ, and what comes as next steps can change as well. An offer rejected can actually lead back into negotiation still. An accepted offer may not be immediately closing. You may have to renegotiate that offer a couple times through as you are under contract. Also, when you counter offer and you're negotiating, sometimes the parties walk away. Sometimes you find out a buyer has been negotiating on 10 different homes and you think that you've got a deal with them here, but really they're making a deal with somebody else at the same time. Or while we are negotiating, the seller receives an offer from another buyer and it just blows it out of the water. So it feels good to the buyer that's been in first position until they're not any longer because they did not agree fast enough. So just keep in mind, this can be a complex scenario. It's good to think of it in this way because we can prepare our buyers and sellers in this way as well, knowing that there are different options. Many times, a buyer thinks they're going to present something and the seller's just going to go immediately to negotiating, and we're just going to negotiate the terms. Well, if we can do a really good job drafting an initial offer that meets a win-win situation, there's a good chance that we go straight from buyer makes an offer to the seller accepts and we just start marching toward closing. In fact, if it's really clear and it's favorable terms and we've got agreement and real understanding on what kind of deal this is, then we may not even have renegotiation during inspection periods and such. You can make a really bulletproof transaction from the beginning if you're highly skilled. Add questions. I would say the questions are the key here. Okay, ahas. What are you guys hearing? I'm going to pull it back to this. Your thoughts around this, something new that you've realized, or how you see this graph and the way that deals flow and why it matters to you.
Don't panic is where I'm getting onto that.
So good. Don't panic. Yeah, if it doesn't go the way you want, hey, there's a lot of other steps along the way. Love it. Tim says no doesn't always mean no. Yeah, that's really good. That's that bottom right block right there. Just because the seller says no doesn't mean that we can't go back into negotiation. So I'll give you an example. We've got actually 2 doors down from my house. We've got a house on the market. My wife is the second listing agent on it. They chose somebody else earlier on. They way overpriced it, and it did not bring it to a successful conclusion of the sale. We put it back on market. They asked, what is it going to take to get it sold? So the seller's mom was in town over the weekend. We went and met with them, and they're talking about painting and improving the home and switching out light fixtures, and they're getting up to like nearly $30,000 worth of fixes. She's from California. Her average price point is way above what ours is here. And so to her, 30 grand to invest to get it back in negotiations makes sense. At the end of it, we're like, okay, so we could do that, all of that. Here's what it's likely going to cost. Or we can choose a price that causes it to be the next one to sell. And she's like, ooh, I like this. Well, it turns out the seller's mom is the one making the decisions now. We talk about what the price point is. She says, this is great. Matt, you got to take this. Just drop the price. Let's get it sold. So we told him, you drop to this price, we will attract buyers and we'll get it sold this weekend. We'll at least get you offers on the table. Well, would you believe they dropped the price and we got offers on the table? We held an open house on Saturday. We had an offer already in hand walking into the Saturday open house. During the open house, we had 4 additional buyers. We actually had 15 parties come through. Of those 15, about a quarter, 4 of them decided to move on it. And so they wrote offers in some kind of way. One of them, well, let's talk about the first offer because we can look at this graph and we can follow the way this goes. So the buyer made an offer. They had seen the property 3 times and then they came to see it a 4th time during the open house. They really wanted this house, but they only wanted it if they were getting a really good deal. And he's like, well, you're a professional. You know the neighborhood really well. Is this a good deal? I trust that you're going to tell me the truth. I'm like, absolutely, I'll tell you the truth. It's a really good deal. In fact, he offered way below, like 40 grand below what the asking price was. And I'm like, look, at that price, the seller doesn't want to even negotiate. They chose option 3. They rejected the offer outright. Now, the buyer took it as, no, you can't reject the offer. Like, we got to negotiate. You want to sell. And so he expected that they were going to counter. And the seller said, no, I'm just going to reject. Now, the seller was not rejecting the buyer. The seller was rejecting that buyer's offer in particular. And so we invited the buyer and their agent to come back into the conversation. Look, at that price, the seller doesn't even take you seriously. And they'd like to, but they are only going to do business with somebody who is serious about purchasing this home. And the offer price that you submitted tells us you're not serious. So if you'd like to resubmit with a serious offer, then we will seriously consider and negotiate with you. And the seller would be happy to provide a counter if those terms are not what they would like. So they doubled down on rejecting the offer. The buyer came back in and now they want to verbally communicate. The buyer came directly without their agent and wants to talk to us about. They're like, well, can you give me a number? I'm like, yeah, we can give you a number. And I gave him the list price. And he's like, well, no, that's what they're asking. I'm like, yeah, exactly. That's the seller's offer to the market. They're willing to sell this home for this price. That is their offer. You can consider an initial offer or a counter offer. But this is why commonly this graph works this way, that the buyer makes the offer. Just keep in mind, the seller is the very first one to make the offer. Now, if the seller makes an offer that is unrealistic and there is no buyer in the marketplace that wants to pay them that price, and they find that they are not serious about selling their home, then there are likely not going to be buyers that make offers. Much like the seller that doesn't want to work with the lowball buyer, buyers don't want to work with a seller that is asking way too much. They just don't see each other as serious. So when we dropped it to a serious price, we brought the serious buyers out. Okay. So buyer says, give us a number. And I gave him the number. He's like, no, that's the price that everybody gets. I'm like, exactly. And at the moment, that's the price. He goes, yeah, but you got to tell me, you got to like give me some kind of number. Like, tell me what we're working with. I mean, you can give us a new number and we could take it to seller and seller might choose to respond with something different. But at this moment, these are my marching orders. This is what they've told me. It's like, yeah, but you must know, you must have a feeling for what they would accept. I said, even if I do, I'm certainly not going to tell you. I said, my like legal responsibility is to the seller and to protect their fiduciary. And so if they give me a price and they say, defend this as much as you can, that's exactly what I'm going to do. I have no other option. I have a fiduciary responsibility to the seller and I have only one number to share. So he kept pressing, give me a number, give me a number. I said, okay, actually, I do have another number for you. I said 15. And in fact, I've got another number, 4. It's like, what? I go, 15. That's the number of people that have walked through this open house since you submitted your offer. And 4 is the number of people that are writing offers right now. My wife's been on the phone with them. And so you can wait and compete against them, or you can choose to increase your offer and get serious about it. So this is still an active negotiation. We've not come to a resolution, but the seller has a bunch of choices because they decided to revise their offer to the public. Okay. I don't think this buyer's going to get it, by the way. He just is unwilling. He would likely pay a fair price for it, something the seller is, but he just won't offer something fair. And the seller doesn't want to play games. So they're looking for somebody that's serious enough to bring them a realistic price and to just make a good deal and not to tit for tat, not middleman negotiations. I will say this, we're going to talk more about negotiating in the second half, but if you are negotiating to some middle number, you just might be doing it wrong. I've never read a negotiating book that says, well, you come down 5 and they'll come up 5 and then we come down 5 and then they come. Like if that's where we're going, let's just race to that middle number in the first place and not go back and forth. Derek, coming right back around to you. Well, actually, I'll come to you right now because I want to tell you a story about another buyer on this same property. So go ahead, sir.
Just quick question. Do you think this is his ego? Because he went so low that he can't come back up to the market price because he's giving in?
You know, that might be part of it. But I talked to him. It's painful for him. He wants so badly to get a good deal on this house. And we started talking about all the other homes available for the different prices that are available. He's like, yeah, actually, I love it. Like, here's the price that I want. I'm like, great. We got a bunch of other homes at that price. How about this one or this one? He goes, no, 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 that's not the kind of home I want. I want this kind of home. I'm like, well, this kind of home carries this kind of price. So it might be ego. I do get that sense. There's also a sense of he won't let go of the negotiating process in his mind of how negotiating works. Because in his mind, the only way it works is I give you a number and you give me a number, and then we just work towards some middle that I mean, this is often what we would call as haggling. So haggling is a negotiating strategy, and in real estate, it's just not a good one. It does not generally bring out the very best result for anybody. Somebody ends up overpaying and somebody ends up under accepting, and it just doesn't work very well. So what I get the sense of, Derek, is that he will not allow himself to purchase if he doesn't know it's the very best deal possible. The unfortunate thing, he's missing a good deal because he will only accept the best deal. And I just don't know when he'll get another opportunity at this. You guys will hear regularly something to the effect of good or perfect is the enemy of good. Like if you're looking for the only absolute perfect result, you're going to miss all the good results that could have been along the way. And then you're given only two options. Did you achieve the perfect result or did you achieve no result at all? Our clients didn't really, most of the time, they're not giving us an option as to whether or not we achieve. They hired us to achieve a specific result. We just need to get the best one we can, a good one along the way. Mike?
Sometimes I think that if I'm on the buyer side of that discussion, I would show the buyer the difference in their monthly payment between what the seller requests and what they're trying to negotiate to see how minimal that monthly payment's going to be if they were to agree with the seller's terms.
Yep. I can agree with you, and that certainly could be. This does assume that we can possibly explain our way into a deal, and for some people it doesn't work because we can explain logic, and some people just are driven by emotions.
Yep.
There's an old bold law that says logic makes us think, but emotion makes us act, and sometimes people betray their own best, most important desires because they're emotionally attached to some outcome that they've already committed to. And yeah, so Mike, I'm with you. In fact, I'd like to work with a good lender that can help them see all of that as well. So I don't have to work the numbers personally. And I've found that sometimes it still just doesn't work.
Right.
So it's good to have a lot of different tactics in negotiations. We're in the second half, we'll get to something I call, and actually it comes out of never split the difference, and it's next best alternative. It's a really great tactic and it's a frame of mind to put our clients in because ultimately they're choosing between two outcomes. It's either this that you're committed to or it's no deal at all. So would you rather no deal at all or would you rather something else? But we'll come back around to that. I want to answer a question that Nick has got. Is it okay to release the number of offers to buyers? I cannot answer that directly because I don't know your seller's instructions. Some sellers would instruct you, and in some I don't know if this is even legal in all states, but like in Texas, if a seller instructs me to go and negotiate and to reveal how many offers and what the offers are, that's the seller's prerogative. It's only confidential information to my client as far as I'm concerned. And if they decide to disclose that, that's their choice. And I would carry that forward. We work with a platform called Final Offer that almost sets up it's almost like an eBay kind of situation where you can see active bids, you can see who's in the winning position, and it very much just kind of brings to the surface all the mysteries about negotiating, and it leaves only what's most important. What are the terms that are going to get the deal done? So no longer does the buyer get emotionally charged around, well, what are the other, they know clearly if they're in first place or if they're not. Now, sellers got to agree to that concept in order to do it. I don't know that it's legal in all states. I do know it's legal in many states, though. So consult your broker, your coach, your leadership for that as well. If they don't have any offers, you can't really tell anybody you have any offers because that would be lying. Oh, I told you I'd tell you one more story. Okay. So we have an unrepresented buyer that comes in. Now, in the state of Texas, it's really clear. And actually, The Department of Justice is pretty clear. You work for only one, your seller or your buyer. You just don't work for both. Now, there are states where it's permissible to represent both parties. And I can tell you from experience and from the nightmare stories that I've seen from other agents and my broker as well, it's just not a good idea. Even if you can, whether it's dual agency or intermediary, there's different terms for it across the country. Working both sides does not generally lead to great results. It can lead to big paychecks if those paychecks come to pass. And I also understand that lawsuit settlements are much more expensive than any individual paycheck. So protect your reputation, do what's right for your clients. The health of your business long term is worth far more than any one individual paycheck, even if you would hope to capture double because you're capturing both side payment. Okay. That said, buyer comes along unrepresented. They say, look, we don't want an agent on our side. We just want the savings at closing. I'm like, well, that's interesting because buyer side compensation, like if you were to have an agent, that's just going to be negotiated with the deal. They're like, well, yeah, but we want the savings on what the seller would pay. I don't know what the seller would pay because it hasn't been negotiated. Like I know what I'm charging from the seller side, but I don't know like what a buyer agent is going to request, what the seller would consider paying. So a buyer's emotionally charged around this, and still they want to submit an offer. They're like, well, can you write up a contract? We said, no, we cannot write up a contract for you, but we can write it up on behalf of the seller. So we'll send you a document that explains why it's not a great idea to work unrepresented, and to make it really clear who we very much disclosed upfront who we worked with and what disadvantage this buyer was at, and he still wanted to proceed. Great. What's the number in mind? So he gave us the number. I said, fantastic. We'll consult with our seller, and if they'd like to write up an offer at that number, we'll let you know. He's like, well, yeah, but can you write up the offer and send it over to me, and then I'll run it through ChatGPT, and I'll like, well, if the seller chooses to write, because that would be a seller signed, we call it a reverse offer, but it's really just an offer. It's a revised offer. Now the seller's saying, yeah, we're listed at this, but for you buyer, we'll do it with these terms at this price. So we would have the seller sign and then send it. So that's why I said the negotiation process and the offer process can look a little bit wonky because all things considered, you work on behalf of your client and all things are negotiable. Those two concepts right there mean that as much as we want to follow a certain process, our clients may take it a different direction. And they may take it a different direction that nobody's ever taken it before because all things are negotiable at their core. All right. Yeah. And it doesn't mean you can close deals with unrepresented buyers. It happens. It is a lot more work on your behalf for sure. Okay. So let's talk about preparing the offer. So we're going to switch over, talk from the buyer side now. Let me allow Alicia in. Okay. So this is interesting. I just want you to look kind of top down. Wonder if I can, somebody's drawn on the screen. That's okay. We're just going to leave that. Number 1 through 6 is all in conversation with the listing agent. So if there's an agent on the other side and you're working with the buyer, just know that the relationship that you build, the rapport that you build with the listing agent is really, really important. There are deals that I have won for my client in multiple offer situations because that other agent wanted to work with me and they were really clear to their buyer. There's also, if you are a neighborhood specialist and people start to know your reputation in your neighborhood, there are sellers that would want to work with you. Even if their agent has no idea who you are, you can win favor with sellers, even if they're not your client. So I can think of a situation. There is a buyer, it was multiple offers. I think there were like 5 offers on the table, something like that. There was a buyer that brought an offer that was $60,000 more than our client's offer. Huge amount. But the sellers knew that I was working on the other side. And this is not to pat my back. I just want to tell you the power of having a local reputation. I work my neighborhood fiercely. People in the neighborhood know who we are and that we mean business and that we treat people well and we get deals closed more than anyone. We do about 1/3 of the transactions here. The seller said, as much as we'd like to earn the more money, we need a sure thing close. And I know the way that Seth does business. So we're going to take his buyer's offer because we know we'll get it to closing. I was blown away. The sellers were really clear, actually. what we were up against, they decided to tell us, and I told my buyers that they were 60 grand short compared to the next offer. And it didn't matter to the sellers because when the buyer said, no, sorry, this is the best that we can do, the seller still accepted it, even though it was tremendously less because they didn't want to face the risk. This is what we're talking about, win-win. It wasn't necessarily the best outcome for the seller, but it was the most likely to close, which was the best for them. Tokumbu, I see your hand raised. Okay, well, drop it in the chat, or you can unmute yourself if you'd like. Let's see. On your listings, you always put in the public section, tenant or buyer to get their own realtor. Yeah, you don't want. It is a lot more work to work through. Okay. So if we're working the offer, number one, ensure the property is still available. You don't want to write an offer on a property that somebody else has already put under contract. And so just be in open communication. You could do this actually ahead of time, asking the listing agent as you're going to see the property, hey, are you working any other deals on it? Do you have other interested buyers? Has somebody submitted an offer? Know that going in. You can open that conversation before you even see it. Or at least what I often do is if I'm standing in the property, I have a pretty good idea if my buyers are going to make a move on it. And so I would, while we're standing there and they're finishing up their tour, I call the agent, hey, I'm standing in the property. My clients love it. What can you tell me about it that I can't see walking through or on the MLS? We want to build rapport. Make sure it's not already sold. Inquired about activity. Have you had a lot of showings? Do you have people you expect offers from? We can see number 4 is specifically that. Other offers on the property. Has it been under contract? Or if you've seen that it has been, that it came back on market, for what reason did the previous buyer terminate? If there's an outstanding condition on the home, it'd be really good to know about it. You can find out about property conditions as the roof. Does the roof have a leak that you don't know about? You're going to find on inspections. Maybe the seller has a home inspection report from a previous buyer that they'll just send to you. And yeah, actually, hey, if your buyer's writing an offer, they're going to get their own inspection. Let me send you this. This is going to help them make a better decision. My sellers really don't want a buyer that's just going to back out again for fill in the blank reason. Ask questions about seller motivations and needs. Fantastic. Thank you so much, listing agent. Hey, I think that we're likely going to be writing up an offer when I'll let you go. If I am, can you tell me what's most important to the seller that I would include in that offer? What is seller looking for? And they're going to tell you if it's price or net proceeds, which is the same. If they say price, just here, the seller means I want the most amount of cash at closing, because you can have a purchase price with really poor terms where the seller's paying title and survey and a whole bunch of other stuff where it doesn't necessarily beat somebody who's offered a lower price, but the buyer's willing to pay for all that stuff. If the seller needs a lease back, they need a couple extra days to move or even longer than that. If they want a quick close or if they want surefire financing, like just find out what's important because that listing agent will tell you. They will tell you exactly what they're hoping to see in their offer. Ask the listing agent how they want to receive the offer. Spoiler alert, 99% of the time, they would just want an email with PDFs. As awesome as you are with DocuSign, as great as you are with zip forms, as wonderful as Dotloop is, the other agent doesn't care, with very few exceptions. They don't want to receive or have their clients receive your document with prep signatures on it. It just can turn things really sideways. I've seen on a number of occasions agents that mean really, really well, and they just want to streamline the process. Then they send it over and the seller receives it directly, and the agent that represents the seller gets all bent out of shape because how dare you send an email directly to my client? I can't disagree with them. Now, they don't need to get bent out of shape. This is probably, I'm seeing it in the chat. This is just some people don't know. And it'd be nice if we could use technology altogether. And the simplest way, get your clients to sign, however they do, take the PDFs, drop it in an email, and send it over. Number 7, obtain the buyer's pre-approval from the lender. I would hope that you have that already. If you're taking them out shopping, work with buyers that are pre-approved if they're working with a lender. If they're not and they've got cash, fantastic. Do you have proof of funds? So have proof that they can bring money to the table. Otherwise, they really don't need to be walking and shopping properties in the first place. Also, the pre-approval letter or that proof of funds is something you're going to include in that offer that you send. Number 8, review MLS and tax records. Get really familiar with the property, know everything that you can. And I would advise that whatever it is that you're reviewing in tax records, in MLS, where you are gaining knowledge about the property, don't rely on your ability to regurgitate that to have your client know everything they need to know. Provide them the documentation. So, for instance, my client receives the the agent full view from the MLS. This is not the customer view printout. This is the full thing with all the information, the private marks, everything. And somebody will be like, well, that's not meant for the buyers. It's just meant for the agents. Right. But we have a fiduciary duty to our clients, which means that they know everything that I know. And the easiest way for me to do that is to provide them the exact documentation that I read to know what I know. So there's no question about it. In fact, we'll talk about it in a moment, but I include all of that in the offer. So when they're signing the offer, they're reviewing all of these disclosures and documents as well. Bernadette.
Yeah, just a quick question on proof of funds. So with the cash buyers walking around with that much cash, and they say, "Here, look at my screen," and they just kind of show you this random screen of some account somewhere. I mean, like, how can you, what would you recommend to be asking for? Do you just say, "Hey, give me your bank statement"? What proof of funds? How do you, in what form should we be asking?
Good question. And this is in Qualify the Buyer. This is an earlier session as well. So you might refer back to where we can go a little bit deeper on that. Use your best judgment and talk to a mentor, your broker, your leadership, if you
Yeah.
need some help reviewing and authenticating that.
Gotcha.
Proof of funds are kind of funny sometimes because they come in all forms. They come as a letter from the bank. They come as a screenshot of a bank account or the banking app. They come as a statement of a 401k or an investment fund that's liquid. I have seen so many different things that would be to prove. From our client, we take what we can and then we provide it to the other side. Now, if I'm receiving, we'll talk about that in a little bit, but if I'm receiving the offer and I'm verifying these things, I'm just going to do whatever I can, due diligence to verify it. So I might be able to call the financial institution. If I feel it's funny, I'm just going to ask questions and try to verify. It is so easy to spoof and to falsify documents these days. And I don't say that to mean y'all should go do it. I mean, you've got to have really keen eyes and to know that with Gemini or with ChatGPT, you can create a document that never existed and it can be entirely false. So we do. It is important that we're keen. If it's a cash buyer, I want to see good earnest money on the table, because if it turns out that it's false, at least they've got some stake in it as well. So I know that's probably helpful to a degree, Bernadette. I'm sorry I can't, but it's really one of those things. It's a case by case review, and a lot of it is a gut check. Does this look right? Is this trustworthy? And what can I do to verify it? Which might be different depending on the document that they provide. With the lender, which we'll talk about in a moment, that's a lot easier to verify with lenders. Number 9, produce a comparative market analysis. Whether you rep the buyer or you rep the seller, you should be producing a CMA. If you are writing offers for a buyer and you're not advising them on what the home is worth, in your opinion, or what other homes similar to it have sold for recently, you're missing a step. You're missing really important guidance. They are hiring you not just to accomplish a task, but also for your professional advice and for access to information that only you have. So same deal. If you have information that is pertinent to this transaction, you must share it, which means if you know the evidence that shows what other people have paid for homes like it nearby, you must pass that along. This is critical information. Number 10, obtain a seller disclosure statement and other needed documents. I think this goes to number 8, review everything. Like, capture as much documentation as you can on the home. You know, this is not a quick and easy small transaction. People are spending $500,000, $1 million, millions of dollars. Maybe they're only spending $100,000 in Kentucky. And that's a lot of money. And it's a place they're going to live. So help them research it, help them understand, provide lots of documentation, slow the process down enough that you can educate them on what they're about to spend a whole lot of money on. All right. Ahas, thoughts, questions around this? Awesome. We had good conversation during it. So we're going to jump into writing the offer then. Here's the things you'll need to know: price and terms. We can see seller disclosure, um, addenda, special clauses. Like, have a really good idea for what you're getting into. Understand what kind of offer your buyer wants to write. What I want you to think is this, because there's a lot of things here. Price and terms are different, by the way, but they work together. For a buyer, the terms often matter more than the price. Price is a term, but what are all the other terms? Like the time for closing, that can matter to either the seller or the buyer. But who pays for the title policy? That typically matters more to the buyer than to the seller, which is why in most markets, it's common for the seller to pay for title. Why is that? Okay, at the end of the transaction, there's a big balance sheet, all the monies that come in from the buyer, from the mortgage lender, from wherever else they might be coming. And then the seller has all of the line items they pay for. They pay off their mortgage, they pay their agent, they pay title fees, they pay recording fees, they maybe pay off another lien or solar panels or whatever else that might be. And at the end of it, they've got the balance remaining. That is what we call net proceeds. To the seller, net proceeds is what matters. Purchase price, people get emotionally attached, but it doesn't matter. And in fact, you as an agent can help people make better decisions if you look at the bottom line, not the top line. Net proceeds matter to a seller. To a buyer, it's very different because they are going to be sensitive to one of two things: either a monthly payment and the amount of interest they pay over the long term, or cash to close. It's going to be one of those two that they're going to lean on. Buyers, almost without exception, if they're financing a deal, they either want to minimize how much cash they bring to the table at closing, or they want to minimize how much their monthly payment is long term and how much extra interest they pay to the bank. So if buyer pays for title policy and buyer pays for a survey and buyer pays for a home warranty and buyer pays for the HOA transfer fees, then they're going to have a bunch of extra cash at closing needed. If they want to minimize and they don't mind a higher monthly payment, maybe a higher interest rate, then they're going to shift all of those expenses to the seller side. They're going to increase their offer price a little bit or a lot to offset, even if it's the same deal to the seller, where then they can focus on their cash of down payment. Banks, by the way, lenders, they want to see the down payment come entirely out of the buyer's pocket. The additional closing costs, they don't typically care as much who pays for those. So like prepaid insurance, prepaid taxes into an escrow account, that can really commonly be paid by other parties. Not always. Every loan is differently considered, but commonly a seller can offer concessions. This means that the seller is giving the buyer cash money in order to pay for their closing fees. I just want you to think about this. If your buyer's trying to minimize expenses, why would they ask for concessions and then also offer to pay title policy? These terms work together. And so think about the theme of your offer. And if the buyer's offering to pay title policy, they probably don't need to ask the seller for concessions. If they're asking the seller for concessions, they're probably also asking the seller to pay for the title policy. Just have it make sense. In fact, what I'd like to do is if you go, I'm just going to drop my link tree in the chat here. You guys can go check it out at coach.texassoldem.com. I don't know if it's the best idea for me to drop that because you're going to find some resources there that are specific to Texas, but also some good stuff. If you look down in the help section of my link tree, you'll find what I've written as the 3-pass method for contract writing. And so here's what I'll suggest. Like all of this stuff here matters, and I'm not going to handle all of those things. But what I'd like to tell you is this: when you're writing an offer, I recommend you do it in 3 passes. And this is the same as writing a listing agreement or buyer rep agreement. From the top to bottom, look at every single blank, every single field, fill it all in. Do not pass a blank that needs to be filled in. Just pause and figure out what goes there. Go do whatever research, ask whatever questions you need, go fill that in, and then move on. top to bottom, fill everything in. Bottom to top now, we look for inconsistencies. Did I write the license numbers the same? Did I spell my broker's name the same everywhere? Did I use the same seller or buyer name where it's appropriate? Did I put signatures in the right place? All of those things. Look for inconsistencies and formatting issues. Now in the third pass, top to bottom, I'm going to one time through read it for comprehension. I'm going to place myself in my client's eyes or my client's position, look at it from my buyer's eyes. I just wrote this offer on their behalf. How are they going to see this? When the listing agent reviews this, how are they going to see it? When the seller reviews it, how are they going to see it? Does this make sense? So I'll circle back around. Sue asked if the buyer pays for policy. So think about all the elective fees, the home warranty, the title policy, the survey, anything else that you might have in your contract. If the buyer is electing to pay for these things out of their pocket, why would they then also ask for the seller to give them cash? It's easier and cleaner. Instead of asking the seller to give them cash so they can go pay for these miscellaneous things, it's so much easier just have the seller pay for those things. This is stylistic advice. This is not legal advice. But I'm just telling you, like, the way that we do business can be done much, much more cleanly. If we just think logically, why am I asking for this? Yeah. And then reading for comprehension, top down, the whole thing should just kind of make sense together. Put yourself in somebody else's viewpoint and read it in that way. Any questions about this page, writing an offer in those terms that you've got to consider? Cool.
When you're sending over an offer, I like to give a summary in my email. Do you think that's good or bad to put that summary of everything they're asking for, purchase price, due diligence, EMD, if they're asking for any closing costs in there?
Yeah, I just snapped forward a couple of slides and that's right here. I totally agree with you. I think creating an email summary, I'm not going to list out every term. I might keep some of those buried, like make the listing agent work for it. If they want to find that I've put this term in there and they take issue with it, then they can. But really, I think it's best if we can just kind of bring it out into light as much as possible. Anything that I feel is critical for that. So yeah, really good point. Appreciate you bringing that up. Okay, so once we've written it, it's important that we talk through the offer with our buyer. If we've written it, we understand what it says. We want to make sure our buyer does. So especially when it is a sense of urgency, you're like, we got to get it in, we got to get it in, we got a deadline, we got to submit it, we got to send it. I've got two options here. And then either way, it's going to result in the same next choice. I might ask my buyer, okay, so we can sit down and we can complete this together and I can explain every term, or we can do, or you can trust me as the professional you hired to bring about the very best result. And I think I've got a really good idea as to what kind of offer you're looking to write based on what you've told me. I'd like to go draft my proposal and then let's get together and let's review it and make sure this is what you would like. Now, I'm not telling them that's what I'm going to do. I'm asking for their permission. And then they say, yes, y'all, I've never had somebody tell me, no, I really want to go through every single, they don't want to look at all the blanks. Like, how much training have you been through to understand what your contract says? And you still might be confused around some things. Maybe that's why you're here tonight. So your clients, if you ask them for that trust, they will give you that trust in most cases to go and draft it. Now, you're going to send it to them and you're going to text them and say, hey, I just dropped this in your email. Please review it. Let's get together and let's review together then. You can ask whatever questions you have. I can explain and make sure you fully understand before you sign something that is offering $1 million, $500,000. Like, it's a big purchase. Make sure they understand it. Encourage them to read it. So I tell them I've sent it to them, and then I ask them to read it, understand it, and then I also ask, when can we get together and review this together? Now, that can all happen really, really quickly. Y'all, I can write an offer in under 10 minutes. I could probably write an offer in under 5 minutes with DocuSign, super quick, super efficient, or zip forms, whatever. Write it up really quickly. I send it over, I send a text. They're going to take 5 minutes to review. So 15 minutes now from the moment that I started writing the offer, we're in Zoom or we're on a phone call and we're both reading page by page and we go line by line, whatever is pertinent. And we talk about those things. I want to make sure they understand the kind of deal they're getting into. Caroline?
Yeah, I was more thinking also nice if you send it in advance so that when you see them, whatever questions they have, you don't have to go through it there, as in they can say, hey, what about all these things? So that when you do schedule to meet them, you already have those points. So they don't kind of, sometimes when people read something right on the spot, they feel a little awkward or they might not know everything. So maybe having that in advance could be helpful.
Yep, absolutely. And if that's something, if you really want to educate them, you can have like kind of a buyer cheat guide or something like that, where you can equip them. Hey, here's the way that you're going to read the offer. There's lots of ways to do that. Yeah, I'd like to ask them. Now, I think that most of my buyers don't read every word of the contract. And yet, as a professional, I'm going to advise that they do. It's their choice if they choose not to. But I'm at least going to recommend, hey, you're spending a lot of money here. Please read this offer before you sign it. And then let's get together and discuss it in real time. I want to make sure you understand what you're signing here. And even if they're the kind that are just going to glance at it, and maybe they just pull up DocuSign and they find the little yellow box and they just match that button as fast as possible and get it all signed really, really quickly because they're excited. Even if they're that kind, they at least know that I care enough about them to cause them to slow down and read it, or at least request it. I can't control what they do, but I can only make the recommendation. So review it before you send it to your buyer. Make sure your buyer understands it. Talk about the important things here. It's important to understand what's critical to cover in your area. So if you have MUDs or PIDs or SUDs, or there are like different tax districts that you might have to address. Maybe there are certain things that you've got to address that are just understand what's important there locally, legally, within your state, within your market area as well. I think it's helpful to know standard or common terms. I don't know how critical this is. More and more in this industry, we become aware that all things are negotiable. I see contracts executed all the time that have terms that I've never seen written like that before. And that's fine. Buyers and sellers make all sorts of agreements. Now, they may want you to guide them with what could be most easily accepted. And if you've got a listing agent on the other side that's been doing business in your market for a long time, they may expect to see certain things in your contract. So work with a mentor, have somebody review your contracts if you're not confident, to see what of those terms might be totally out of line and surprising to the other side. Rookie agent mistakes. Y'all, if you follow the 3-pass method, you will avoid most of the rookie agent mistakes. Can I tell you the number one rookie agent mistake that people make? Anybody want to take a guess what that is? I will tell you the most rookie agent mistake that I see on a regular basis is there are blanks that aren't filled in that are supposed to be filled in. It is such a terrible disservice to our industry, to your business, to your clients, to the deal that you're trying to put together when you pencil whip a contract and you don't read it line by line. Every single person in the transaction expects that you know and have memorized and can understand and can recite every word in the contract. Now, I don't have every word memorized, but if they challenge me on it, I can go and I can at least read that paragraph for comprehension. I've read every paragraph. I've read every word. I can understand, or I have understood at one point, every single word in the contract. I don't need to know all of it inside my head. I just need to know that I can engage with it and make sense of it. It's so important. The title company, your clients, the agent on the other side, the lender, everybody thinks that you know everything in that contract. Just be familiar with it, please. Read, and fill everything in. All right, then presenting the offer. So now we've sent it to our buyer. They've signed it. We get the PDFs back, and we're going to pack it up in an email and send it off. Before we send it off, we want to check a couple of things. One, we want to double check the documents. Did something get missed? Did I not get all the signatures that I was supposed to? Am I missing initials? Did I miss a blank that I intended to? So I'm going to make one more comprehension pass through and verify that this is the offer that I intend to deliver. Number two, follow instructions. Certain listing agents are going to have, and certain sellers will have specific instructions for you to submit. Some want you to drop it into an offer portal or to send it to a specific email address or to somebody who, there are so many different, just pay attention. Maybe there's additional addenda or riders to the contract that you need to follow. If you're working with relocation, this gets really specific and kind of strange and unpredictable. Just read the instructions that they have and you'll understand how to submit it. Label all the documents clearly. I love this so much. And this sounds so silly, but I think somebody is going to take this practice. If you have a really strong naming convention for your documents, others will adopt it. Meaning, if you abbreviate the addenda, like in Texas, we have third-party financing addendum as a singular. So I write TPFA dash property address and just the number and the street name. I don't put drive. I don't put the city or the zip code or anything. So I make an abbreviated, what is the document, dash the street address. And I do that with everything. Purchase offer, dash street address. Financing addenda, dash street address. Seller leaseback, dash street. And I name all of those things. It makes it really, really easy and it stands out. Because I know if I'm in a multiple offer scenario, most of the offers that they're receiving from other agents are just like, they're like DocuSign, sign, date. Like the names of the documents are just so random and strange. I want mine to be so clear, so crystal clear. I want it to be a sneak preview of how awesome it is going to be to work together. And if you have a really good naming convention, they'll adopt it so that it makes it easier for you to read all the rest of the documents, the rest of the transaction. The title company uses your naming convention. The lender uses your naming. Everybody does. So you can establish kind of the terms of play if you have very good ones. So name them clearly. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be fancy. Just know that if somebody is looking at a PDF file they've downloaded from your email, they should know what it contains before they click on it. They shouldn't have to wait for it to load into their PDF viewer in order to understand that that's the purchase offer or that's the seller disclosure notice. Order the documents logically. I don't know how important that is because PDFs sometimes attach in all sorts of random ways. You're likely going to put them into an email anyway and just have them the way that they are. An email summary. There are a lot of different ways to do this, but hey, I'm so excited to present the following purchase offer for the sale of this property address home. My buyers love it and they're eager to move into their new home. Should any of the terms be unsatisfactory to the seller, please give us a chance to come to an agreement because they really want to buy this property. Really look forward to working together. I'm assuming the close already. And then please find below some highlights from this purchase offer and purchase price, earnest money, option fee for what time. Like we just kind of line them all out. I don't put all the terms in the entire contract. What are the ones that really matter that I think are going to be difference makers? If I'm offering an appraisal waiver or a seller lease back, or if I'm asking for a contingency to sell another home, I'm going to line those things out because I don't want them to be surprised. I also don't want them to ever feel like I'm lying about something or hiding something. So I know I said before, I'm going to leave some of those terms kind of embedded in there. Like if I'm asking the seller to pay for survey, I'm just going to leave it. That's not a big deal. Most sellers are not going to choose between two offers because they have to pay survey on one and not on the other. There's generally, sometimes, if all the other terms are exactly the same, but typically you're going to have some other big differentiator that is there. Now, also, if I've got a really strong communication and a good bond with a listing agent and it comes down to survey, I'd like to think I'm in communication with them when the seller's making that choice. And if all we got to do is shift the survey over to the buyer side, we've still got a chance to win. Okay, so pro tip. Write the email, get it ready to send, then call the agent, and the moment they answer, fire it off. Hey there, listing agent. So good to talk to you again. Hey, I just wanted to let you know I just dropped this in your email. I want to talk with them in real time and hear them when they receive the offer. I want to hear how they respond to it. I want to hear how the seller might feel about it. And I don't know exactly what I'm hearing, and I don't know exactly what it means, but my best chance of understanding where I sit in this in position for negotiating is if I can hear them in real time respond. I can hear the pause. I can hear the cadence of their speech. I can hear the questions that they ask or the ones that they don't ask. I can hear them stammer and stutter. I can hear their excitement if they're excited about it. I can hear their doubt or dismay or frustration if they've got that too. I just want to hear it. And I don't want to delay. I want to make this good. I'm doing this because I want to bring this to closing. And I found that this is a really good way to make deals happen very quickly. Hey, I've just dropped this in your email. And then they receive it. Now, if they don't answer, no big deal. I'm going to leave them a voicemail. Hey, just calling. I've just dropped this in your. I'm still firing it off. I'm not waiting to send it. I just want to have a chance to, at least a chance to have a conversation. There's still a chance if they're busy, there's a really good chance they're going to get my voicemail before they get my email. And then after I've left the voicemail and I fired off the email, then I'm going to send them a text. Hey, quick note, just dropped an offer in your inbox. Give me a call when you've got a chance so we can chat about it. And make it super easy going. I just want them to call me. I just want to talk. I probably don't have the authority to go back and forth and negotiate additional terms for my client at this point. That's okay. I just want to talk. I just want to give the very best chance to my offer. Add all the documents to command. I think once you've got an executed contract, I wouldn't overcomplicate this. Have a work file and then upload executed documents. Sometimes you'll have 7 rounds of negotiations and different versions of documents. Don't clutter your space more than you need to. And then just consult your buyer. As soon as you've sent it to the listing agent, hey, buyer, I might just send them a text. I'm not going to spend all night talking to them and agonizing. They're going to be wondering, hey, have they responded? Have they responded? The next morning, hey, did they respond? What'd they say? I'm just going to let them know, hey, I just fired off the email, talked to the listing agent. They're going to talk with their sellers, and I will let you know as soon as I know more. I could also say the moment that I know more, you will be the very next person to know. So I'll keep you updated. And I might even tell them, hey, this may be agonizing every minute that they don't respond yet. Just know this is ultimately going to be a short amount of time. So when you feel like it's taken forever, I mean, feel free to drop me a line, but don't expect an update quite yet. Please know that I'm on top of it. I am in communication with the agent on the other side. And as soon as we have an update, I'll let you know. I want to preempt the fact that they might be a little bit over urgent with demanding a response. And I don't want them to sabotage their own negotiating position. Because if I call the listing agent back 10 times before they've talked to the seller, then when they go talk to the seller and be like, well, hey, these guys, they said this, but I get the feeling they're going to pay a whole lot more. This agent's called me 10 times. They are desperate. Caroline.
Do you ever tell the agent or the listing agent what amount you're sending before you send an email? Like, hey, I spoke to my client. We're going to make an offer. I'm going to send it to you. Do you ever throw out the number just to kind of gauge their, oh, yeah, no, maybe?
Got a great question. Maybe. I think there are a lot of different ways we could approach that. And I'll typically talk to my seller or my buyer. I want to know the way my buyer wants to handle it. And I'm going to tell them how I would like to handle it. And I'd like their trust to handle it a certain way because I'm a professional at this. And so my way of doing it is we write a formal written offer because we want to be taken very seriously. I don't want a verbal that they just kind of sit on because I don't know if they're going to go shop that verbal offer with another buyer that they're negotiating paperwork with. And if I don't have that offer in writing in their hands, I'm now in a really bad position. So I'm going to draft it. I'm going to tell the agent, hey, I'm rushing home right now. I'm going to write this offer. Or, hey, I've got my laptop with me. I'm going to write the offer on the hood of my car. Hang tight. Don't make a decision quite yet. I'm going to have this to you as quick as I can. Not all situations are like super crazy urgent. But if I can express a sense of urgency, that's generally a really good sign for somebody you want to work with. If they are eager to tell you the intent and they're eager to take action to bring it to a closing, this is normally somebody you're going to choose to do business with. So I want to reflect that. I just don't like giving verbals before I have something in writing. But that's my style. An offer expiration, Don asks, it's a really good way to tick off a seller. It's a good way for a seller to say, ugh, oh man, like I kind of wanted to work with them, but they're trying to call the shots as to when I can make a decision. I think I'm going to go find somebody else. Like if they're already kind of prickly up front, I don't want to know what it's like after we get inspections done. So that said, there are other situations in which an offer expiration is appropriate. Just know it is very few and far between. I've seen a lot of agents want to do that. if you have a really good reason, if your buyer's only in town for the weekend, or maybe they're trying to decide between 3 properties and this one they really, really like, but if they're not going to make the deal, they have to move on the other one because they got to get their family moved to Dallas from Pennsylvania next month. So we got to lock up a home now. And it's one of these three. So Mr. and Mrs. Seller, respectfully, we request an answer by Saturday at 5 p.m. Otherwise, this offer is considered null and void and withdrawn. Now, as an agent, I'm still going to follow up with a formal withdrawal. Most of y'all have those mechanisms in your state documents as well. Oh, I was just Pennsylvania was just I was just saying a state. I wasn't saying anything specifically. Um, I would if you're not in Texas, your documents a whole lot. Yeah, and there are some markets in which expiration is a little bit more standard. It gets a little bit more common when there are fierce multiple offer scenarios. Dennis asked, are listing agents honest? And John said, if they're going to lie, all bets are off. Yeah, unfortunately, you can only control that you are doing things legally and ethically. You can get a good sense, have discernment, not judgment. Do not judge another agent for what you do not know that they have done, but discern in your gut what you think might be happening. Just be careful, because if you may discern something that you don't know to be true, you may cause your buyer to take a course of action that is not in their best interest. Saw it very recently. We had a buyer's agent that got a bad feeling about the seller on the other side. Turns out it was totally unwarranted, but they let their emotions get the best of them and they shared that bad feeling with their buyers, and their buyers blew up the deal because of it. And looking back, it was the buyers that blew up the deal. It's not the agent's fault, but the agent created a situation in which the buyers got really emotional and blew up the deal. All right. So from the listing side, receiving and responding, first thing when you receive an offer is to make sure it's complete. Review it and understand. You're going to pass it along to your seller as quickly as possible, but review it. Understand if it's missing information. Because if your seller catches that it's missing fields, forms, signatures, blanks, whatever that might be, if they catch it before you do, that could be a really bad situation for you. So make sure it's complete. If you've provided instructions on how people are to submit or what documents to include or whatever it is, just make sure it's all there. Once you make sure it's complete, then you confirm with the other side that you've received it. If I confirm receipt without first realizing it's missing documentation, now I've got to go back, and now it's not the most professional way I could present myself. It's not bad necessarily, but there's a better way. Review it for completeness, then respond, because I can instead say, hey, agent, thank you so much. I received your offer. It looks like we're missing this, this, and this. I'm going to forward over what we've got to our seller right now. And would you please, they can't make a decision until we have all documents in hand, whether that's missing signatures or anything else. Get the offer to the seller in a timely manner. That means like right now, unless your seller's instructed otherwise. So if your seller said, hey, let's review all offers on Monday, or if you start getting a whole bunch of offers and you've sent them 7, and this is number 8, 9, 10, and 11 all at the same time, you might have a situation where you're like, hey, seller, we're getting a ton of offers. This might be wise for us to reconvene on Monday when we've got everything in hand. Can we meet at 3 p.m. on Sunday and just know I'll have all the offers in your hand by then? Is that okay with you? And if they say yes, fantastic. If they say no, I would like them as they come in. Just understand you're getting paid a lot of money to do exactly what the seller wants you to do. So by default, you are to deliver offers to your seller as they come in, unless your state says otherwise. But I don't know another state that says differently. Create an executive summary, just like writing up an offer from the buyer and sending it to the listing agent in bullet points. This is a really good idea, especially if you're working multiples and you've got 5 offers to present. Creating bullet point comparison. Maybe you create comparative net sheets. Maybe you create a breakdown. Command actually has a really cool piece, and you might be covering this on Thursday in the final session of Ignite on the tech side. Command can actually do a lot of this for you and compare the offers side by side. Call the buyer's agent. Hey, I received your offer. And I sent you an email in confirming receipt, but hey, I haven't spoken with my seller yet about it. They've got it in hand. They're reviewing it. Just thought I'd give you a shout and see what you can tell me about your buyer. I don't know what they're going to tell me, but what can you tell me about your buyer? They might tell me all sorts of things. Okay. If I'm the one asking questions, I'm not the bad guy. I don't need to avoid asking a question just because I'm concerned that they might share something confidential that they're not supposed to. The fear and resistance of asking that question on its own could get me in trouble, right? I've got to trust that the other side is professional also, and that they are going to protect what information that they need to protect. I have a mutual trust with them. I'm going to act ethically. You're going to act ethically as well. So I'm going to ask you to tell me all sorts of things. And you might tell me personal things. If you tell me personal things, I think it's because your buyer told me you could. Now, are there times that the buyer's agent's going to tell you things that they shouldn't? Yes, that is going to happen. But that doesn't make you a bad guy in that scenario. Just ask the question and see what you can get. I'm not saying create a tricky situation where it's going to cause somebody to violate confidentiality by any means. All I'm saying is open up a conversation where they can share freely with you what the buyer wants you to know and what context you might be able to bring back to your seller to put some color into this contract as well. Because the contract itself is just black and white, or the purchase offer at least. Call the lender. After you talk to the buyer's agent, if there is a lender, now it says if allowed in your area. I don't know where it's not allowed. I call a lender on every single deal. So maybe it's not allowed in your area. I get it. And I'm definitely calling the lender before I call the seller. I don't want to review an offer from a lender that is unreachable without telling my seller, hey, I've already tried to talk to the lender. I couldn't reach them. Da, 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 da. Now, most, like if it's a great lender, if it's a local lender, they're awaiting your call, or maybe they're calling you as the listing agent before you even have a chance to call them. But either way, they're typically pretty eager because, like real estate agents, most mortgage lenders only get paid if they can bring deals to closing. So if they originate a loan, they're going to make a hefty sum, just like you will if you close on a transaction. And so they're eager to take your call. If they wrote a pre-approval letter, they are super eager to tell you how awesome it is and how great their buyer is. Also, if the buyer's not so great, they may want to protect their reputation and tell you the truth. So I generally ask 3 questions. What can you tell me about this file? That's very open-ended. They tell me all sorts of things. Now, most lenders don't need to tell me much, and they really probably shouldn't tell me much. But I don't know. It's not my job to understand where their limits are. It's their job to understand where their limits are. I just want to open it up for them to share as much as possible with me, and then trust that they are going to work within the boundaries that they are given. What can you tell me about this file? That's question number 1. Question number 2, how quickly can you close? I don't want to ask what's an appropriate time for closing. I want to know how quickly. Because if they can close within 10 days, great. I'm going to tell my seller that. Now, maybe the buyer asked for 3 weeks, or maybe they asked for a month and a half. Most commonly, a lender is going to tell you, I can close within 3 weeks, or I can close within 4 weeks. But if the buyer's asking for 6 or 8 weeks, and that's the case, and I talk to the buyer's agent, they're like, yeah, we would close sooner, but this lender, goodness, they need some more time. I already know that that's not the case. So I want to know everything, all the context. I don't want to catch somebody in a lie. I just want to create a situation where everybody's honest. I want to help people tell the truth. I want to help keep people honest. And you do that by creating accountability. You do it by making things known. You do that by asking a lot of questions and hearing from the parties that actually have the answers, not the person that heard from the person and that heard from the person what the answer is. My third question to a lender, what red flags do you see? I love this question. In most cases, this is when they say, you know what? No red flags, super clean. I wish that every buyer was this way. That's cool. Like, I don't know how true that is and like how much that is just them trying to prop up their buyer. I don't know. But what I do know is that if there are red flags, this lender is likely to tell me right then and there. Red flags? Well, really no red flags. And we haven't reviewed all the documents yet. So once we get their credit report in and review their financials and da 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 da, now I know it's really just like an early prequel. It's not any kind of underwritten pre-authorization, pre-approval. So I just want to know where they are in the process. It doesn't make it good or bad, but I got to tell my seller, hey, this buyer, they don't have their documents in. They seem like a really strong file from what the lender said. This other buyer, they're really far through the process. Now they're like right on the edge on being able to be approved. I like whatever kind of context and color I can provide is better. Create an outline document. That might just be like maybe you write up a formal document, or maybe it's in your email that you give to your seller. But also maybe that's just a notepad with paper and you've just been jotting figures and notes down. Just take lots of notes. So it doesn't have to be something super formal. Just keep record of what is important so you can pass along the most important stuff to your seller as you go. Caroline,
Sorry, Miguel.
no apologies in this space. What's happening?
What was the third question for the lender?
What red flags do you see?
Got it. Thank you. That's what I thought.
Yep. I always ask that last. Always. Because what can you tell me about this file? I'm already looking for red flags. How quickly can you close? I want to know if there are things that are going to cause us to close late. I'm also asking about red flags. And if I didn't hear anything in those, I'm just going to ask it outright. But it's different words. So sometimes I get different answers. All right. Tune in Thursday for how you can work offers in command. Receive, review, respond to the offer. Here's the thing. It comes down to a decision. Just know that whatever you're doing in writing the offer is to bring forward a decision point. In fact, the closer your offer is to what the other party wants, whether it's an offer or a counter offer, the better chance you have to just get acceptance on the first go. If you've got a really good open line of communication with the listing agent and you are working on the buyer side, there's a really good chance that you can verbally negotiate and come to a very common sense decision before ever writing it up. My goal and what I tell, in fact, I famously in this market, I don't write a whole lot of offers any longer. It's mostly my bride that does. But when I write an offer, if I know that I've won in the multiple offer scenario, I will put in the email subject line, winning offer. I just tell him, because I'm committed to making it happen. I want to let him know, hey, we wrote terms to get the deal done, not to go back and forth. Yes, Tim, thank you for asking. In fact, if you hang tight just a moment, I'll put that back up on the screen here in just a moment. So look to do what you can to bring it to an agreement, not to negotiations. All right, we're going to blow through this. We will come back around to it, but I'm seeing 26 minutes left on the clock, and we've got another session to get through. So what I'd like to do is create an opportunity. If you guys enjoyed this session, I would love so much to have an evaluation from you. This puts me on my course to, excuse me, to become KWU certified. I'd like to take my training across the nation. I'd love to come to a market center where you are, and these evaluations get me closer to that. Big part of why I do these, aside from the fact that I just love it. Other ways I could make this happen. I love this space. Love being here with y'all. If it's anything but a 5-star, which is the best that I could have, I would love to know. Please reach out to me personally. That QR code is not what leads to my personal information, but the next one that I will show does. So Tim asked for my contact info. It is here. My phone number and my email address. Those are real. Those really work, and I invite you to use them if I can help you in any way. I believe I should really know exactly where that QR code goes. I'm testing in real time. Maybe you choose to also. I think it goes. Oh yeah, it goes to my coaching link tree. So I had mentioned before the 3-pass method. If you scan that, that's what you will see there. You're already registered for Ignite After Dark, so you can skip that spot. All right, so we're going to talk negotiating offers then. This is a much more brief session because we covered the bulk of it in making and receiving and responding to offers. I will tell you this, if you do a really good job up front, the renegotiating of the contract is not it doesn't have to be a really long drawn out process. I really truly believe that we are skilled enough in conversation and communication that we can write an offer that is then accepted. And it doesn't mean that it's just really, really exactly what the seller wants. But if we understand, like, it doesn't mean that we're over asking price and all the terms favor the seller. But if we understand the market and we understand what competition we're up against, or sometimes what competition we're not up against, Tim, oh, Sue was looking. I'll put them both up. Here's one QR, and then here in about 30 seconds, I'll put up the other one. Um, if we are skilled in conversation and if we know our marketplace and we've asked the listing agent, hey, what's activity like? Where's the seller at? What's most important to the seller in an offer? I can really understand what they want and what my buyer's willing to provide. It creating a win-win and getting your offer accepted on the first go, it doesn't mean that you gave the farm away. It doesn't mean you gave the other party everything that they wanted. What it means is that you gave them exactly what was most important to them. And if you do a great job, you can protect what's most important to your client while still giving the other side exactly what is most important to them. This is not a matter of compromise, by the way. A compromise often means that each party would give something up to the point that, like, we've both given up so much that we're just in the middle of where like compromise can be a terrible way. It just means that nobody is really truly happy with the outcome. A win-win circumstance is totally different because that means that whatever is most important to the seller and whatever is most important to the buyer is what they got. Minimized cash to close, got a really low interest rate, and the seller got their net proceeds. They got exactly what they were looking to walk away with. Or the buyer got a really low monthly payment. They got the right deal on the home. They got a smoking deal. In fact, they got the best deal that they could ever imagine. And for the seller, well, they're bringing $30,000 to closing, but they get to move on with their life and not foreclose. Sometimes that's a win-win. I think of a short sale that I worked in West. Actually, I think I talked about this earlier this session. Maybe it was in my coaching room today. Anyhow, I worked a short sale in Dallas last year, and the seller was in a really, really bad way. She was facing foreclosure, and she was listed for a certain price. That price was $35,000 below what she paid for it a few years previous, but she just had to go. Well, I knew my buyer was in the driver's seat because there were other homes. This is the only one she wanted to look at. It was right next to the airport that she worked at. It was going to take her less than 3 minutes to get to work. If she didn't have to drive around the fence, she could have like walked onto the runway where she worked. It's perfect. Not a lot of other homes would have been this excellent for my buyer. We drove them down like another $25,000. It was like another 15% we negotiated down. It was a short sale, so that meant we were negotiating with the seller, with the listing agent, with the bank. The bank had to approve everything. It was a smoking deal. My client walked in with wonderful equity in the home. And the seller, you might think that they got ripped off. They were thrilled because they got to walk away without a foreclosure on their books. It is exactly what they wanted. There were no other buyers offering to pay anything, much less what we were paying. It was a better outcome for the seller, even though it wasn't the outcome that they were looking for. This is what it looks like with a win-win. So we're going to talk about negotiation in general. We're going to talk specifically about the 3 Ps in negotiation, look at some negotiating tips, and then recap for the night. Lee Steinberg, sports agent and author, says negotiating is not something to be avoided or feared. It is an everyday part of life. Those of you who are parents understand this. Like, working with our children is negotiations as well. Like, even if you just dictate exactly what they're going to do, you're betting yourself that by telling them exactly what to do, that's the best way to get them to do it. There's advanced parenting techniques that I'm not saying telling them exactly what to do is a bad thing. Like, I tell my kids to not run out in the middle of the road. It's very, very clear, direct. Don't do that again. But also, I might understand that for some of my children, they really like alternating choice. And so maybe I give them two choices. I'm okay with whichever one they choose. Both are good for them. Or maybe I create two choices and I know that they would never choose one and they will only choose the one that is good for both them and what I want them to choose. This is negotiation. I understand that I can present an idea and the other party is going to accept something. We're negotiating to a win-win. Um, all right. So we're revisiting Y4C2Ts. I just want to pause for a moment. Let's talk, share in the chat. You can unmute yourself and share with me here. Where do you see these Y4C2Ts come up in negotiations? As we've been talking about offers and coming to win-win. Obviously win-win. We've said that like 100 times. But how could these other things come up in this way?
Communication for sure. With
Yes.
everyone, right?
Yep. Well, I love what comes after that. Communication, seek first to understand. How in the world can I advise the best path forward if I don't first understand what is important to the parties involved? Love that. Tim says creativity. Yes, absolutely. So important to think outside the box. Sometimes when you're negotiating deals, the other side will tell you, you can have this or you can have nothing. And maybe this or nothing aren't acceptable to my client. So we got to create other solutions that maybe seem like this and aren't nothing. Teamwork. Yeah, we're working with the lender. We're working with the other agent. So just like we are hired to bring it to closing, so is the other agent. They're likely not going to get paid. Some agents work on a retainer. I don't. I capture my fees at closing. And most agents on the other side do the same.
I
And
think
commit.
trust is so important because your clients need to trust that you're going to work on their behalf. For instance, if you negotiated the offer, the accepted offer came in lower than the asking price, then you're going to have to counsel them on what happens after inspection. If the seller's already taken a hit here, how much are they going to take a hit here again? Things like that, like nuances in the deal as you move through.
So good. Yeah, if they know that you can see further down the road than they can, are they choosing to trust you and that you got them no matter what? And thank you for sharing that, Amy. The way that we communicate, the questions we ask, the way that we treat them, the way that we handle ourselves, that determines whether we're building trust or breaking it. Just the same. There is nothing that you are going to do that doesn't either build additional trust or threaten the trust that you've got. It's either taking you closer to the goal or taking you further away. There's no action you're going to take that's going to keep you exactly where you are in the same standing. So I love that. The client trusts us. It'll be very easy to work on the rest of the process. Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate y'all sharing this. Okay, so this looks kind of like the previous slide or the previous session. There's an offer. It's accepted and it closes. I really prefer option one. And I know that sounds kind of silly. And you will find what you seek. And you may not find it every single time, but if your goal is to find option one, just know that option one is a possibility and look for solutions that would bring it about. Look for conversations, look for options that would bring you straight from offer to accepted to close. If we think that everything looks like option two and I don't even know what that diagram is around the word negotiation. I don't even know what that means. I think that means just a hot mess. It's like it kind of floats around. I don't know why there are three circles there. Is that like, I don't know, father-in-law got involved in the negotiations? Because normally it's just two parties. I don't know, but I know things can get messy sometimes. And if it's been messy in the past and that's all I've ever known, I might think that every situation is messy. That can color my results. If I don't ever believe that a good offer can result in an acceptance and a closing, it's very unlikely I'm ever going to structure a good offer that's accepted and just closes the way it is. That said, know that at the very far right of option two is also close. So even when it gets messy, you can still bring it to closing. There's hope for it. And while many deals, probably most deals, look more like option two, both can bring about. I'll remind you, most of you choose to negotiate with your clients very, very high fees for what you do. There's a lot of work you don't get paid on. In fact, most of the hours that you spend in your business, most of you, I know for me at least, I don't get paid hourly or for all those efforts. When I help people with property tax protests, and I send them comps, when somebody asks, how much is my home worth? And I spend time to research that and to write them emails. When I'm holding open house, like I don't get paid for all these things. We get paid when we close. So be willing to do the work. Nobody feels sorry for you. If you negotiate a $15,000 paycheck at closing, there is nobody in this world that is feeling sorry for you. And it's funny, I actually stood in a seller's living room the other day and we were talking about a listing that we didn't get, a peer of mine got, and it was like 1.7 million. He's like, well, based on your fees, he's trying to do the math in his head. He's like, how much do you get paid? And I told him, he goes like, that's it. I'm like, yeah, that's a lot of money. Most people think. He goes, yeah, I just thought at that price point, like you'd make more than that. So nobody feels sorry for you. They think that you get paid well, really well for what you do. And so they know that you're willing to handle messy things. You should remind yourself that you're willing to handle messy things as well. It is okay. And actually, it doesn't necessarily need to be messy to everybody involved. Just look for a good solution. All right, so who do we negotiate with? This is something we commonly miss. In fact, our whole industry got in a lot of trouble. In 2024, we settled a massive lawsuit. In fact, what we got notified to last week, Keller Williams the first to settle the new lawsuit from the seller side, the buyer side. Anyhow, the whole industry and the Department of Justice now has rendered an opinion on how we talk about what we charge and that all things are negotiable. Here's the deal, y'all. It's always been always negotiable. Your fee is always negotiable and it should always be negotiated. So when you work with a buyer, you may have a standard fee. You may feel like it's a standard fee for agents in your area. It is okay for you to have a standard fee. If you have a standard fee, you have, like I have a business model that is based upon a very specific amount or a percentage that I charge to my clients when we transact. And I tell them that this is for good reason. I have a whole business model based upon this. And we still talk about it. And even if I say, if they ask for a discount and I say no, that's a negotiation. Like no is negotiating. Them asking is negotiating. Me bringing it up and saying this is what I'd like to be paid, that's part of the negotiation process. It's also negotiating if somebody asks you to do work for a certain fee and you say no and you decline to work with them, that's okay as well. It just must be negotiated. And so just understand when you sit and counsel a seller before they hire you, you are negotiating both the price and the terms that you're working with them. How long are you working together? What do you charge for your services? What kind of services are you offering for what you charge? What's expected of them? What price are we going to market with? All of those things. Those are all terms and the price as well. When you're working with a buyer, same deal. I think this is even more important. Your buyer should understand exactly what you charge going in. Now, when I work with a buyer, I tell them what I charge. And when they ask for a discount, I say no. But that's okay. It's part of the negotiating process. Now, I don't say it just like that, but I would really like to understand what's most important to them. And based on what they tell me is most important, we're going to talk about what services I can provide to bring them about a great resolution, exactly what they're looking for. And if they're not willing to pay me for my fees, they can probably find somebody else that will take a different level of fees. They're going to get a different level of service, unquestionably. And that's what they're choosing. That's negotiations, folks. Like a buyer can bring an offer and a seller can say, no, I don't want that. The buyer's like, well, this is the best I can do. I can't afford what you're asking. So you're unreasonable, seller, if you don't choose to sell it to me because I'm the only buyer you've got. And I can only afford, the lender only gives me this much money. And the seller says, okay, no, we're going to wait for a buyer that can afford this house. We recommend that you go find a home that you can afford because this is not one of them. That's negotiations, folks. Sometimes it's just outright rejected, and that's okay. We've got to be okay. And I'm not sure if this is handled on any one of these slides, but no is a possible outcome for all negotiations. And we've just got to be okay with it. We must be attached to the process and our client's outcome. We must not be attached to the result that we have. And we've got to help our clients see it that way too. Just because they get offended and they want to blow up a deal because they don't like the person on the other side, is that really in their best interest? Because do they like the home? Is it the right one for them? Is it the right price? Do they need to move in soon? Because if that's the case, then we should probably help them through the emotional process and get back to the logical side. People do make emotions based on decisions, or sorry, decisions based on emotions. It's a normal thing. And it's a big part of our job to stand in the middle of that and say, hey, let me counsel you. This is a natural thing for us to get emotional. My job is to help create a barrier between these emotions so that your emotions and the seller's emotions don't mix. Because when they do, it doesn't generally work out well. So for my paycheck, if I'm concerned with my personal outcome, it is going to cloud my judgment and the advice that I give to my client in a deal. There is no one transaction that is worth as much as my reputation and my business. And so I choose to always do the right thing for my clients. And I would really hope that y'all do too. This is easier said than done. I get it. Especially, this has been a really tough market. Some of y'all are in markets that are doing just fine, by the way. You're doing a ton of transactions. North Texas is growing like crazy. And we are not growing at the rate that we were a few years ago. And yet there's still a lot of people buying homes. So I can get into comparison and say, woe is me. These aren't the heydays like in 2021 where we could do deals blindfolded. It's always going to come back to the client, what's right for them. So we can never, I can tell you plenty of stories. I just won't share them here, but I could tell you plenty of stories of seeing agents make decisions in their best interest, trying to keep deals together because they need a paycheck. I watched an agent recently get sued over this, and I don't see a whole lot of lawsuits personally, but when agents go sideways and they get sued, it's often because they've made a decision in their own best interest, not their clients. Okay, I digress. Caroline, you got your hand up?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think I used to work in the hotel industry, and I would have very influential clients, and they were used to getting their own way and what have you. But a lot of times when they get a no, people will be like, oh God. And I was like, no, they just get a no. They get a little stunned, and then they're like, okay, well, they've got some backbone, and perhaps that's really who I do need to work with. There's also that side to it.
So good. Yeah. Yeah. People want to work with firm negotiators. And so when you negotiate for your fees and your service and the terms that you wish to write when you're working with a seller or a buyer, for instance, a seller says, hey, you're so lucky. I'm going to give you the listing instead of giving this up. We were going to give it to this other agent, but you're the lucky one today. So you get it. First of all, like I kind of want to vomit when somebody says something like that because you're not giving me anything. In fact, if anything, I'm taking something. I'm taking on a listing that it sounds like you're going to be real work to deal with. But anyhow, step out of judgment. Let me get back into the point that I'm making here. If they choose to hire me and then they choose to give me 45 days to sell a home in a market where the average time on market is 150 days, this could be a really problematic situation. Especially on top of that, if they choose a price that isn't going to cause it to sell in 45 days. So now I got to have the backbone, Caroline, to your point, to tell them, hey, I hear you. And what I hear is important to you is that you reach this result. Is that still true? Yes. Wonderful. Well, the path that you're choosing and asking me to follow is not going to bring about that result. And here's why. Can I help you make a better decision? That might be choosing a better price. That might be choosing a longer term to list with me. Who knows? Maybe that's choosing not to sell right now. We've got to be willing to accept that sometimes sellers don't need to sell and sometimes buyers don't need to buy. Sometimes what's right. It's what is right for them. The important thing is that we're slowing down enough to have a really good conversation here. They do pay attention. And I love what you're talking about here, Caroline, especially sellers. Sellers hire top fee agents, like well-paid agents all the time because they know they're going to get the job done. People know that they get what they pay for. So don't be shy to ask for really good payment. You guys know all the disclosures, all things are negotiable. I've probably said it 10 times. But it's really important. And it's important we think of it this way because there may have been a point in the past where I could kind of lean on what other agents get charged or what other agents charge in order to get paid well. I can't lean on that anymore. Like the secret's out. It's always been negotiable. And so even if some of us got away with it in a time past, it just doesn't work. We just got to talk about what we get paid. Price is a term. So when we talk about price and terms, just know that price is a term, but we separate it because it's the most impactful term. In fact, when you go to list a home, 60% of your marketing strategy is the price that you choose. There's a lot of other terms that go into that in your marketing strategy, but 60% of the impact in how you go to market is the price that you select. So if you choose the wrong price, sometimes it may not matter how great your postcards or your flyers or your open houses look. Price is normally the primary factor. It's the cost of the property if we're talking about working deals. Terms sometimes are financial, sometimes are time-based, sometimes they're convenience. I want you to think there are 3 factors. This is not in your curriculum. You may want to write this down. Sellers commonly make decisions, and actually buyers do too, on these 3 factors. 1, they make it based upon the convenience of it. Like how easy is it for them to make this happen? 2, based on confidence. How likely is it to close? If I'm going this distance, is it going to result in what I'm looking for it to? And then 3, it's cash. How much money? There's not a whole lot outside of those 3. We can look at all of those. Well, it's going to take a long time to move. Well, if somebody's talking about a long time on market or a long time during a contract period, it's probably because of their confidence in like what are the things that could go sideways in this long contract period. Or it might be convenience. Man, if it takes this long, it's going to be really difficult for me to figure this and this and this out. It also could be cash. If it takes a long time to close, maybe they're concerned about their holding costs. If you got an investor, they might have a hard money loan that comes due and it gets really expensive if it's long. So the 3 C's: convenience, confidence, or cash. I'm going to blow through a lot of this because these are a lot of conversations that we've already had. Preparation is key. We talked about research. Develop a relationship with a listing agent. Find out everything you can. If you're the listing agent, find out everything you can about the property. If you're the buyer's agent, find out everything you can about the property and the seller and your buyer's needs. Line it all up. We present. Your soft skills are going to shine when you present. The way that you present, the order you choose to present, the words you select, the tonality, the method of communication, whether it's phone or text or email or whatever it might be. I will tell you this, in this industry, email and text is really good for sharing information. It is terrible for negotiation. If you just want a factual response in a question, then ask that question for a factual response. But if you're looking to get to the bottom of something and to convince somebody or to persuade them or to guide them or all of that, like that's way better done on the phone or face to face. Through text message and through email, people read into words things that weren't ever there. They read emotions into statements by text that you never really meant to say. And so you may be at a disadvantage by writing a text that should have been a phone call. I get not everybody wants to answer the phone. I'm just saying, consider making it your first option. Do what you can to negotiate human to human. Only do what only you can do. Only you have the voice that you have and can have a conversation like that. And then position. If you seek the winning position, a win-win resolution, that's where both parties agree. This is most important to me. That's most important to you. We respect that about each other, and we're going to bring this to closing. So you may find in the initial offer and counter offer that your parties are really far apart. You're just going to have to understand where the positions are first in order to figure out, okay, how can we reposition people to get closer together to have an agreement? Sometimes, by the way, you execute a contract with positions still really far apart. And then you've got a buyer and seller that think it's all just going to wash out during inspections and negotiations for repairs. So know your goal, know your client really well, know the motivation, and continually bring them back. Please always obey the laws. That means you got to know the laws and then obey them. It is very tempting to go sideways on what is legal, even if it means that you're ethical. In negotiations, there are times where the ethics are going to conflict with the law. And when that happens, you always must do what is lawful, even if somebody disagrees and feels it's unethical. I'm not going to offer a bunch of examples here, but I just want you to think about that, because there are times where somebody asks you to do something and, oh, but it's right by my seller and I should do, but I think that this is okay. Is your discomfort because it goes against what NAR has told you, or is your discomfort because it is against the law? You may have a choice to just let go of a client, because if they are asking you to do something that that you're legally bound to do and it is unethical, know that there is a third option and walking away may be the right solution. Just be aware. Set clear expectations up front. Questions are the key to everything. Ask. You can look it up online. It's a series of 7 questions. It's called the coaching habit. It is the best, most concise list of questions that I know of. It's really cool. Look up the coaching habit. Michael Bungay Stanier is his name. He's an author, and the coaching habit it's just so good. They're powerful questions. They're very open-ended. In fact, we talk about in here open-ended versus close-ended questions. Um, Open-ended is really what you're going to use almost always in negotiations. Closed-ended questions are for clarity when it is very factual. Like if I just expect a very factual response. And I like to sum it up with this. Close-ended questions, I'm only going to ask if, with a yes or no question, I'm only going to ask it in one of 2 scenarios. One, if I'm okay with either response. So I can ask a close-ended question, and if it's just factual and I just want that response, or whether they say yes or no, I'm okay with either way. I just want clarity. I'm okay then. Secondly, ask a yes or no question if you already know the answer. And maybe you just need that person to hear it. I would make an argument, though, with the latter, that it's better that you can ask them in a different way. What? Because if you can ask a what question and they can tell you the same thing as a yes or a no question would resolve. But now it's their idea and they don't feel trapped into answering something that was, in many cases, they would just feel as a trick. You may ask a yes or no question where they just feel like they've been tricked into saying something. What would happen why is this important to you? I will just say on this one slide, be really cautious with why. Why questions cause people to be defensive, which is great if you need them to defend a standpoint or to understand why they are in defense of this decision that you feel is out of alignment with their needs. Just also know that, remember, everything either builds trust or breaks trust down. And so you may ask a why question that there's a really, really good chance it's going to threaten the trust that you've built in any case, because now you're asking them to defend. That means that you are naturally on an opposing side with them. Sometimes it's necessary, but it is far less common than you would think. What and how are probably the most powerful questions we can use in guiding our clients. We talked about this quite a bit in the first session. Call, listen, keep quiet. Like if you are asking questions, which you should be, then really listen to the response. Resist the urge to talk over the other agent. My worst negotiations is when the other person walks away thinking that I was condescending. I might be totally right, but if they feel that I was condescending, it likely is not going to bring about the resolution. I know when I'm right, and I know that everybody likes to be right. And sometimes because I'm right, that means that they're wrong. And it might be true, but I don't necessarily need to remind them of that. But I've got this temptation because I want to be right and I want to look really good while I'm doing it. Everybody wants to be right and they want to look good. Just acknowledge that they do. Try to find wins. Try to acknowledge that other side. Listen carefully what's important. You can either stand in defense of what you're doing, or you can look to hear okay, what are they looking for? Because it's more important that we bring this to a resolution than it is that I get exactly what I want. Focus on your client's needs, not yours. Nobody cares about your pride, unfortunately. It hurts sometimes. And number 7 is really important. If you decided to take a client that is offering way below where they should, and they are choosing negotiation strategies that you advise them against, just remember you chose to take that client, and you can choose to not have that client any longer. But if they give you an offer, you must give it its best chance. To take an offer to a listing agent to say, look, I know this is really bad, and I told them they should offer different. So can you just get us some kind of response? Because I have a really good feeling a buyer will get realistic. They just want to hear back from the seller first. I'm not a lawyer, and I'm not licensed in any state except for Texas, but I could tell you from what I understand of real estate law, that is highly illegal for you because it's not fiduciary. You must protect your client's best interest. You must present in the way that they wish for you to represent them. Just imagine you're being recorded pretty much all the time. We got to act as if everybody knows exactly what we're saying, that they can see what we're doing. If we're in a, this is the concept of integrity, doing the right thing, even when it's uncomfortable, even when, like, we always got to expect that people are watching, that everyone knows. To position, this first piece is so good. Acknowledge and affirm common ground. Hey, I'm so glad that we're talking about that. I can see that we're far apart, like 15 grand right now. I also know that we're both working toward a common resolution. Your buyer wants to buy, my seller wants to sell. So here's the areas that I see are still in conflict. Here's where I think we can agree. These are the most important things. How do we resolve? How do we work these things out? I think you can go most of your career without having agents yell at you on the other end of the phone. And it's really easy to get other agents to yell at you on the other end of the phone if you don't make that a point. Positioning is a process. And then number 4. So I know we're a little over on time, so I just kind of want to wrap it with this concept. I want to equip you with the concept of the next best alternative. And this is something that I've used with my sellers and buyers for years. It comes from Chris Voss, Never Split the Difference. It is one of the most powerful negotiating concepts. It makes you a real consultant, and it returns people to their motivation. Mr. Buyer, you've presented this offer and the seller has not accepted. So as I see it, you have some choices here. Like, I get that this is exactly what you want, and there's a chance that that the seller will agree to this. Maybe it's just a matter of waiting. I'm going to lower my hand here. And let's just prepare a backup plan in case the seller doesn't just come around. As I see it, you can, on 2 ends of the extreme, either agree to a deal with the seller. Right now, it looks like what they're asking for, or you can just walk away. Now, I'm not saying we have to take either of these extremes right now, but I got to understand from you, in order to represent you best, which extreme would you choose? If they don't accept your offer as is written, and I'm not going to go tell the seller, but I got to know, are you more likely to accept what they're asking for, or are you more likely to walk away? That's going to guide our negotiation to the very best outcome for you. That's next best alternative. Like, if in an extreme, is it better, one or the other? For the seller, same deal. Hey, I get that you don't want to accept any of these offers. It's less than what you're asking. And I'd really like to think that the next buyer that's going to walk through, maybe this afternoon, is going to bring exactly what you want. And unfortunately, we don't know that yet. So I've got to prepare you for the alternatives. And so we've got this offer on the table. Is it more likely that you're going to accept this offer or work with them, something similar to this offer? Or would you rather wait weeks, possibly months, holding out, hoping that another buyer comes along and brings you what you're looking for? If you can position it in such a way, people get real with you. That creates a conversation with sellers. You could talk about holding costs. And when they say, oh, I'd rather wait. Okay, great. Let me just make sure that we're on the same page. So if it's 3 months from now, that's another $15,000 in holding costs. This buyer's only asking for $10,000 discount. Are you willing to risk $15,000 in holding costs and pass up this offer, which is a known? I get it feels like a known loss, but like I got to remind you, this is a win. Actually, they're bringing $490,000 to the table, and you sell your home, you complete what you're looking to do. I don't mean that we're done, by the way, when they tell us one extreme or the other. I'm going to double down and I say, okay, from what I understand, these things are important. Here's the decision I see you making right now. Let's make sure that these are in alignment with what's most important to you. You previously told me this. Is that still true? So if you can take it to extremes, your clients can get pretty serious about what is best. And it can help you understand where there might be a win-win. And then if there is a highest and best or a final offer, whatever that looks like from your client or a final counter response, then you can go with confidence to the other agent and say, hey, look, I'd really like to think that we could keep going back and forth. My client's not looking to play games. Here's where they're looking to be. And I don't mean this to be a nuclear alternative, but like they would rather walk away than to pay what you're asking. And they don't mean that offensively. I hope the seller takes that with respect. And this is what they're willing to pay. It's not a matter of can they pay more? That's actually irrelevant. This is what they're willing to do. It's a very mature negotiating stance, by the way, if you can talk about what they're willing to do instead of what they can do. It's a very immature stance to say they can't do anymore. This is their highest and best because they can't afford. The lender is only all of them. All right. Thoughts, questions, ahas around all of this? All right. I know we're 13 minutes past. Amy, you've got something?
No, I just wanted to say that I really appreciated this. This is really just great tips.
Thank
You
you so
know,
much.
keeping it cool, keeping the emotion out of it, and always having everybody's goal in mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate the
Thank you.
conversation there.
Yeah.
You bet. You bet. This is fun, guys. If you can practice, and I will encourage you, go practice, go role play these scenarios. You certainly have agents in your market center that would be delighted to speak with you on the phone and practice these conversations and to sharpen your skills. Iron sharpens iron. So go find somebody that's looking to develop the same skills that you're developing tonight. Go be the great agent that you believe yourself to be. All right. Professionals practice their craft. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
sticking around. We will do this again at 8 p.m. I wish you guys well, and I look forward to seeing you in second quarter night after dark if you come back around for that. Be well.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.